And we're live.
Hi, Tim. Hi, Christine. This is so fun. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. And I just shared all over the place, so hopefully people are going to come join us and hang out.
I love it.
So this week we have the amazing, the one and only Christine Gritmon, who is personal branding coach. I won one of her mugs in from a Twitter chat, I think. And she is the expert on personal branding. So let's ask the obvious question first. What on earth is personal branding and why does it matter?
Ooh. It's so funny because I answer that so much that I want to make sure that I'm not being too redundant, and I want to make sure people get the goods. I would say your personal brand is the version of you that exists in people's heads. And that is, what people associate with you, what people remember you by, the feeling you give them. It's the version of you that lives in people's heads, which hopefully is something, right? We want to exist in people's heads. We want to take up that real estate. And it matters because you have a personal brand, whether you own it or not. There is a version of you who lives in people's heads. Maybe, less of a presence if you're not really out there, more of a presence if you are. But people are going to have an impression of you no matter what if you're out here existing in the world and you're not, a hermit off somewhere, not associating with humans. And you want to take control over that image as much as possible, not only to be what you want them to think about you, but also to be accurate, I think, is really the goal. And that's someplace where people get into trouble, because the version of themselves that they want to place in people's heads may not be who they really are. It may be something they're trying to project. And that's when you get into trouble. That's when it's less effective. That's when it's more freaking work. So I always advise that people just tease out their actual legitimate awesomeness that they can maintain and put that forth as strongly as possible.
I know the first time I heard that I was a brand, I was brand new to the internet, brand new to Twitter, brand new to social media.
Brand new.
And someone said, "You're a brand." And I thought, what does that mean? I'm a person. Christine, will you explain what that means? Because I think a lot of people who are new to social media may not understand what it means to be a brand online.
And there's a very negative association to it too. Sometimes like, oh, you're a brand. It can be kind of implying that you're a little less human. And that the reason why that is because a lot of people have taken it to that level. They've taken the persona, the veneer, a little too far. We've seen that with some influencers on Instagram and things like that. I feel like they're kind of the best case study because they came along. Hey, Tim Sohn. They came along and sort of, on the one hand, they broke new ground because it was taking the branding power away from the brands and putting it in the hands of people, which is where it started all along. I mean, back in the day, we did what people around us did, right? And people we trusted. And they took it to an unhealthy place, to the point where some of them, not all, but some influencers kind of took it to an unhealthy place where they started feeling more like brands than people.
Okay.
Which is ironic because their whole power was in the fact that they were people and not brands. But then once money got involved and once fakeness got involved and they'd start kind of putting anything out there for a buck, it sort of tarnished things a bit. And we're really in this place now with digital marketing, with marketing in general, and especially with social media, that we have to get back to basics. And people are starting to get back to basics and realizing that they need to keep the social in there. And they need to be human because people don't trust anything else. And people have learned to kind of sniff out that BS a mile away. So to get back to your initial thing with the you are a brand, it got that bad association because the personal and the brand got a little too muddled and forgot that the power of the personal brand is in the person. And so what you are a personal brand really means is that you are recognizable. You are taking up real estate in more people's heads than the average bear. It's not just in the heads of your family and direct friends. Maybe people who you haven't met in real life have a version of you in their heads. I think that's really the mark of when you're a personal brand, when people who don't know you have a version of you in their heads that they allow to take up, a decent amount of real estate in there. And again, especially once we get to that point where we're not interacting with these people in real life necessarily, where they're not necessarily seeing us at the grocery store. We have to be extra cautious that we control that message that is out there, because any exposure to us could be someone's only exposure to us. So if we want to live in their heads, we need to make sure we're living there as who we are.
So, I'm sure you haven't watched any of the back episodes, because nobody ever does whenever they come on these shows.
Sorry, I'm a bad friend.
But we've got a long-running joke. Well, it's not really a joke. It's turned into a kind of a meme almost. That Christelle is going to start a llama farm.
I am.
Yeah, she did. So I decided one episode that
Wait, a llama farm.
Yeah,
a llama farm. Yes.
Will there be alpacas too?
It's one of these things I have no idea about llama farms really, so I don't really know what they do. But let's say that Christelle was starting a llama farm.
It shouldn't be.
Well, maybe. Christelle was starting a llama farm down in San Diego.
Nice.
And she comes to you and says, I want to create a brand for me and for the llama farm.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of questions that you would ask her, and what kind of things would you tell her to do to start off her great llama farm branding exercise?
Say that 6 times fast.
Yeah.
I would say the first question I would ask is, are you kind of building out 2 separate brands, the llama farm and your own personal brand as a llama influencer? Or are they really going to be kind of merged? Because one should inform the other, even if you are having Christelle, the personal brand, llama influencer. Obviously, you should have shots from the llama farm, and anyone who comes to your profile should know that you run this llama farm. But are they going to be separate accounts where you also, are talking about how to care for llamas, how to do these things, maybe a little bit of other things that you do? Are you a consultant for other llama caregivers, or are you just kind of chilling with your llama farm? The llama farm itself, I would say you need to lead with what's going to get people to crave you and to want to be there, which means lead with the llamas. I would say, even though people love human faces on Instagram, they love animal faces even more. So I'd say as much pure llama content as possible is going to be great for that. Make sure people get to know the llamas' names so that your fans see it post and they're like, oh, that's Candy. They know which llama is which. I would say, as I say to everyone, putting something out there is better than waiting till something's perfect and putting it out there. And llamas are perfect with that, because the fact is you can just have footage of llamas just being llamas. It doesn't have to be anything interesting, and people will just eat it up. So I'd say that's kind of a slam dunk in terms of what content do I put out there. Just let the llamas be awesome. Let them be llamas. But I would also say check out, especially on Instagram, and I think that a llama farm would kill it on Instagram. I would say especially make sure that you're also engaging with other accounts in the wildlife arena, in the llama arena, including llama fans, in your local area, since that is a location-bound business to some degree. So you want to make sure that other local businesses and people who are following them know who you are. I'd get in touch with kind of mom influencers and mom bloggers and things like that, because of course any sort of animal farm situation, not the book, any sort of like petting zoo situation, moms are especially inclined to visit. Look at the hashtags they're using, look at the other accounts that are engaging and make sure to engage with them. But you can really build a huge llama lover community. And I would, again, if you are doing the Christelle specific personal brand as well, I would have that be more sort of behind the scenes of running a llama farm. Llama nutrition you have to consider. People who think llamas are awesome and would make great pets, here's why that's not a good idea. Here's the things we can do with the, llama fur or whatever, and no, we don't hurt them, but here's stuff we have, and we have it in the shop, but yeah. I could do that for an hour.
We're getting a llama farm.
You managed to name her first llama as well, Candy.
Yeah, we have a name, Tim. Candy.
We do.
Team Llama.
Tim's son is saying
hashtag Candy in my head.
Team
Christelle, you
llama.
need to start a llama farm because, like, I'm excited now to go.
The funny thing is, on Instagram, I actually did do some searches looking for a llama farm. It's all alpacas. Like,
Yeah.
for some
Alpacas are
reason,
friendlier. That's what it is. They're the same type of fuzzy. They're very similar build, but alpacas are a little more docile.
Okay.
There's
Tim,
also
you
an
found
Instagram account called Adorable Alpacas, which
Do they live together? I wonder if you can have an alpaca and llama
I think
farm.
they do.
I
Yeah,
think they do. Yeah.
Wow, I'm soaked. I just want to make sure people at home who maybe don't know me, I am recording from or live streaming from the uninsulated basement of a house from 1897 with windows that don't open. So that's why I look like I've just been in a pool.
Okay, so I saw you post. Where are you? You said it's super hot. Where in the world are you that it's so hot?
I'm in New York. I'm in Nyack, New York. So it's like less than an hour from New York City.
Okay.
It's freaking hot. But I guarantee Manhattan smells like garbage right now. So.
Oh my word. And they shut down schools? Is that?
Yeah, so the schools in my kids' district, they decided that the next 2 days are learn from home days. So it's virtual. So that my kids are on Zoom right now. I'm glad that I'm hardwired to the internet. They're not. But partially because so that the kids could presumably be in air conditioning, though who knows what everyone's house situation is. We do have air conditioners in the windows that open in the rest of the house. And partially so that they don't have to wear masks. Because wearing masks on a day like this,
okay, that makes sense.
Hours is just torture. So they are mask free in their own little rooms downstairs.
So nice.
If they have a problem, that is Greg's to handle.
Why am I saying a lot? I think a lot of people, when they think of branding and personal branding, they automatically think of logos, colors, fonts, and all the rest of it. Now, where do you put that in terms of your conversation order with people, and how important is like having consistent quotes branding in terms of visual fonts and other things like that?
When it comes down to it, your branding, whatever that entails, and that can entail multiple parts, including colors, including logos, but it doesn't have to. Whatever your brand expression consists of, that sort of kit.
Yeah.
First of all, your brand values need to come first. Before you decide how you're going to express things, you need to know what it is that you're expressing. You need to understand who you're talking to, why you're talking to them, why they should care, what you can do for them, how you're going to show up with value. It's good to, this is a do what I say, not as I do situation, but I do encourage people to have certain brand pillars of the things that they talk about, some of which are personal, some of which are business, mixed there. But understanding what are those things where when someone sees your content or reads your content or hears your content, whatever you're doing out there, or even has met you, what are the things that are going to ring a bell for them next time? Because if you meet someone again, but they don't remember that they met you before, that's not 1 + 1 is 2 brand impressions. That's 1 and 1. You're starting from scratch every time. So you need to figure out what your brand is before you figure out the external brand expression of that. And the external brand expression, where the logos and colors and whatnot come in, and again, it doesn't have to be those things. Yeah. That comes down to what will they recognize. And for me, obviously, I go crazy with the red, but it doesn't have to be something like that. I mean, Baer, you see his plaid suits. Hopefully you'd recognize him if he were in a plain blue suit. But the fact is, when you see a plaid suit, you're like, I've seen that guy before, even if you don't yet know the name Baer. And something like that but it can be things like catchphrases. It can be things like style of whether it's style of writing, style of video, or personal style. There's this woman, Britney Crosson. I might be pronouncing her last name wrong. I've never met her, but I follow her on Instagram. She's always doing like dance videos on the treadmill, which is interesting. But the fact that I recognize it, I'm like, oh, that's that lady who's, for a while before I remembered her name, I knew she was the woman who does dance videos on the treadmill. Then once I started seeing her stuff more, I looked into her and I realized, oh, she's a social media person and she sells wine. And like, I know all these things about her now. And now I'm at the point where I remember her name too.
Yeah.
For a while, you know, before that, I just knew I had seen her before because no one else was doing what she was doing. So there's a lot of different ways to be recognizable. It doesn't have to be plastering the color red everywhere. It doesn't have to be putting your name everywhere. This new logo is based on my actual signature, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's about being easy to maintain.
All right, Christine.
My life was red already.
Hi, Chioma.
Hi.
Chioma's here from the UK watching. We love Chioma. She was one of our guests before. I like to get a little personal.
Oh, do it.
What led you to personal branding? What kind of brought you to now becoming a personal branding coach?
I'm going to try to tell the not too long version of that journey. So first of all, before I even started my business 5 years ago, my first career was in marketing related stuff, but it was pre-social media and I was an underling. So like I didn't have a personal brand. And then, you know, I did my worker bee thing for a while. Then I found myself in a job where at exactly the right time in my life to embrace this, I started working for our local newspaper at a time when 3 key perfect storm factors were going on. First of all, that newsroom was starting to realize the value of personal branding, especially for a local paper, and realizing the value of having its people be known, liked, and trusted. You know, I love the know, like, trust. So they were just starting to really embrace that. So I entered that newsroom at exactly the right time because I took to that organically and wound up getting promoted to a position where I helped the other journalists step into that because they had been trained, you keep the journalist out of the story. You're a non-entity so that you can be impartial. And now they were expected to develop Twitter followings. They're like, what the heck? So I stepped into the right job at the right time from that perspective. Also, they were just starting to really utilize social media and they didn't have official social media experts yet because it wasn't really such a thing as much. They had people in the newsroom who were assigned to kind of become social media experts. So they were kind of studying everything that happened and how can we tweak. So they were building the airplane in the air. And so I also naturally gravitated towards that. I had never used social media from a professional standpoint before. So it was exciting that I kind of got it and I was able to help that person. And then the third element is I was entering my mid-30s. I just had my second child and I had this major reckoning of this is a time in life when women disappear. And once I was there, I understood why. I was like, I completely could become fully absorbed in family and work and not have a self for a little while. I see how this happens. And I rebelled so hard against that. I was coming out of postpartum depression. I was just like, F it. I am stepping into my spotlight now because this is, if I don't, it'll be 18 years before I do. And so that also was a moment of I'm going to shine or I'm going to disappear. And I feel like there's no middle. So it was a very good time for me to shine. So I developed a very recognizable, very well-known locally personal brand while I was at the paper so that people started asking me about advice on social media and things like that. And so after a while I said, you know what, I could do this. So I quit. I loved that job, but I quit it to start Gritmon Inc. in May 2016. Zipping ahead, it didn't start out as personal branding at all. About a year in, I realized that I needed to rock my personal brand more because I was like, well, I'm known locally. People know who I am. And then I realized, no. First of all, I need new people to know who I am. Second of all, I need to know who I am for this. Going to things like social media marketing world, I really learned the importance of personal brand and the things that go into it. So really about a year in, I started rocking my own personal brand in a more defined and elaborate way. And then just last year, 2020, summer 2020, I took a hard look at it and I was like, people are really noticing that I have a knack for personal branding. And it is my favorite part of the work that I do with my clients.
Okay.
Figuring out their brand, figuring how they can shine and put themselves into it more. So just last summer, I decided to double down on the personal branding thing. And ever since I did that, ever since I sort of said this is going to be my thing, because before it was a little too general, the opportunities that it has opened up have just been incredible. I've become so much more recognized. It's been good for my personal brand, but also it's so satisfying that I've honed in on my favorite thing to help people with. And I right now I'm trying to work up the confidence to go even harder on it and to stop describing myself, with an ampersand in the middle as social media for small business and personal branding for professionals. I need to just be like, the people who need me for the other stuff will find me still.
Yeah.
But I need to put myself forward in a bigger way as helping people with their personal branding. But I'm gonna, and I am.
You're doing it.
I'm doing it, but it's really fun and empowering because everyone has something special about them. Everybody does. And nobody realizes, or a lot of people don't realize how special what they have is, because it comes naturally to them. When we're good at something, we discount it because it's not hard for us.
Yeah.
And
well, this is important. What you're touching on is really important. So how often do people come to you with, let's say, a low self-esteem? They don't really know what they're doing. And how important, and how do you do this? How do you kind of pour into them, telling them, no, you do matter. What you have is matters. Where does that come in for you?
A lot of times it requires looking from an outside perspective. I've been in situations where it was literally someone outside saying, here's what this person's awesome at. I'll never forget, I've helped a few real estate offices. I've helped a lot of realtors, but I was doing a team training for this particular real estate firm where I know that they're all friends. And so we did it all together, and I'd kind of go person by person being like, okay, so I know you can do all the things, but what's your jam? Like, what's your favorite thing to help people with? What's something that maybe comes in from your personal life and interests? And they'd say, I don't know. I can kind of do everything. And then their friends would be like, are you kidding me? You and your husband flip houses. You know everything about walking into a house, and you can see all the possibilities and what's possible. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a thing? So sometimes it requires that outside perspective. And if other people aren't there, sometimes I just have people say, so what have people said to you or about you? Because, of course, we discount the praise. We'll hear one negative comment and wear it on our hearts forever. But all the praise, sort of fuzzes into the background. And so I tell people to really focus in on that and to say, what have people said about you? When other people talk about you, what have you heard them saying or heard about them saying? What do people tend to notice about you? And they're like, oh, well, they noticed this, but I mean, I don't agree with it. I don't actually think that that's really my strength. I'm like, okay, so first of all, it is a strength, whether you think it is or not. But what really matters is that something that you want more of coming your way? Because that's another thing. The fact that we're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that that's what we want more of. So what we put out there as part of our personal brand has to be what we want to attract more of. And that's another thing that I tell people. People say, oh, well, I've done this, so I feel like I do need to hammer home all this stuff that I've done, but I'm really trying to move more towards this. I'm like, guess what? What we need to emphasize then is not all this experience you have over here as much as the skills that will get you here that you've been developing along the way. So we need to emphasize the skills you want to continue using, not just the ones you have.
Yeah.
So that's a really big thing too, that people kind of can't get their heads around, because we have imposter syndrome, right? People are saying, well, I can't put myself out there as this thing that I want to be because I'm not that yet. I'm like, but can you do it though? They say, yeah, I know I can do it. I'm like, what skills from what you have been doing are you applying that let you know that you can do it? They're like, oh, well, I guess this, and there's just a lot of ways to go about it. The biggest thing, though, that I work on with people, when, to your point, I know I'm being very long-winded today, but to your point about when people show up with that lack of confidence and feel weird about putting themselves out there, the thing I really try to emphasize is that there's people who need you. There are people who need what you have to offer. And if they can't find you, you can't help them. If they can't find you, they probably don't get helped. So it is actually not selfish to put yourself out there. It is not selfish to shout off the rooftops what you can do and help people with. It's selfish to hide it. So that's something that I try to ingrain in people's heads.
It's selfish to hide it. That's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah.
That would have been a better thing to end the interview with. We might have to just get you to say it again at the end.
I can. I got tons of gold here, man. You can, you know.
Yeah. Well, I obliterate the show making clips and put them on the internet. So
go for it.
Well, let's talk about briefly, because we've only got a few minutes left, but what about the negative side of people and their businesses? So what do you downplay? I mean, there's this question of authenticity.
Do you mean when people suck?
Well, yeah. Well, people have aspects which are good, but they have aspects which are so they're. Let's say somebody's working for a company on the branding side, but they have no control over the product, and the product's mediocre or something like that. Or there's an obvious problem with it. How should they deal with that? Should they be upfront about the fact that, like, every third time it fails or something like that?
That's
or
a
should
hard
they just
one
downplay it and just have nice fonts and logos and the like?
That's a hard one because my first answer is get a new job. I know that's easier said than done, but my first answer is if you don't believe in something, God, don't try to sell it. Find something better or make the product better. So, I mean, I recognize that this is not within the bounds. This is someone who can't help it and they are stuck for whatever reason defending this thing that kind of sucks. I would say maybe if they are empowered to do so, which it sounds like in this situation they may not be, but it would be lovely if they could say, look, we want to get better. We are always improving for you. You're helping us build out this product. This is just a beta. Yep, it's a beta. Let's call it that. When it breaks, it was a beta. So we are building this in public. We want your help. We want your help crafting the best product for you. Give us your feedback. And first of all, that feedback right there can be turned into content right there, which is fantastic. But maybe that's your whole thing. Maybe people are like, oh, this is the brand that wants our feedback. This is the brand that is, iterating. Yeah. If you're empowered to do that. If you're not empowered to do that, I mean, God, I would have a lot of trouble defending something I didn't believe in.
Yeah.
I geek out. When I've worked for other companies, I've geeked out really hard on anything they were selling. I drank all the Kool-Aid. I was just like, rah. I spent a number of years in the beauty industry, and I still gravitate towards those brands that I worked for because I just feel a sense of loyalty.
Yeah. You should have worked for Kool-Aid, really, and then it would have been more
Brilliant.
I should work for a cult. That's
Christine, your best advice for women stepping into their power. I love how I watch you kind of rah and empower women, and you empower everyone, but specifically to women. How do you advice to women stepping into their power, whether it's their personal brand, whether it's they're starting a new business, whatever it is? What is your best advice?
Being a confident woman in our society is itself an act of rebellion. It is itself a force. And so I would say, by stepping into your own power and being out there, you are empowering others to perhaps a greater degree. I feel like a white man doesn't see other white men and go, oh, I can be that. I mean, they do to some degree, but the fact is it's sort of the default that you can be whatever you want. And I grew up with that as a woman, honestly, too. I always felt like I could be whatever I wanted, but not everybody does. And so just by standing in your truth, but honestly, by owning your confidence in who you are, you're showing someone else that they can. You're giving them permission. I like to say, it's funny, I never wore two-piece bathing suits when I was skinny, and I do now that I'm a good 80 pounds overweight and have 2 kids and I'm in my 40s. And I do that partially because I'm kind of giving permission to everyone else to not worry about their own gut. Because you know what? I feel fabulous. And so I feel like that's sort of a similar lesson, not saying everyone has to wear bikinis, but that similar lesson of simply by being out there as your confident self, you're giving others permission to consider the same.
I love it.
That's that.
Well, I think we have to ask the question because sometimes this gets forgotten about in the melee. But how can people find out about you and get in touch with you and hire you and help you make them wonderful?
So on the other hand, on one hand, I'm really easy to find, but on the other hand, I'm confusing because I put my profiles together at different times. But I am the only Christine Gritmon out there, which is great because I had to share my maiden name. So I'm the only Christine Gritmon, which is swell. I am C. Gritmon on Twitter and Instagram. Okay. Christine Gritmon Inc. on Facebook and YouTube. And I'm Gritmon.com because my husband owned that domain since before we met, and now it's mine.
Oh.
That's why I'm Gritmon.com. Also, ChristineGritmon.com would be really long. I own that, but it redirects to Gritmon.com.
That's brilliant. Christine, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So enjoyed hearing from you.
I look forward to meeting you one of these days, Christelle. Next time I'm out in San Diego.
Come out. We'll go do a
Llama farm.
We'll do a food tour.
Yes.
That's my favorite thing to do.
She'll be the woman with the llama.
Beer, tacos, and llamas. I'm down.
There we go. I love it. Thank you for being here. Tim, thank you for popping in. Shioma, thank you for popping in. To everyone who watches now and later, thank you, thank you, thank you. Tim, what do you have to say now?
This is a sort of because I've generally screwed up a few of the endings by kind of me talking and then Christelle started talking and I started the outro. So, but I have been telling people on YouTube, if you're watching the replay, then above Christine's head should be a subscribe to the channel option or a channel button or something, I think. So,
I think it's down there. Actually.
It's there.
It's down there.
Well, yeah, it depends on what
you can also scan the.
Yeah, I think I've set it up to be about it, but it'll probably be while the outro is playing. So
it's
anyway,
somewhere.
Thanks for everybody for watching, and we will see you guys
Tuesday. Bye.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
Cliche shit.